I'm Erica.
And I'm John.
And this is Tax Chats. So in our last discussion, we talked about the benefits of automating your sales and use tax functions. And today we're going to continue that discussion. And we're going to start off with how to merge your systems. Like, is that really a daunting task? Because I know the stuff we talked about last time may have made it sound a little overwhelming and like a really big project. So
yeah, and I actually think that it appears to be a daunting task, but it's a daunting task that needs to be undertaken. Companies today are growing through a myriad of ways. They could be either growing organically by adding new product lines or distribution channels. What we're clearly seeing in retail is the omni-channel experience. Sales are going through cataloging environment, online environment, and the traditional store sales. Each one of those environments generally have a system associated with it for procuring what the purchase is and how to apply the tax rates to it. But when you take those systems and consolidate them into one, you get a much more streamlined, cost-effective approach to managing the data around the sales and use tax function. So merging them, yeah, it might be difficult, but the benefits of having a consolidated and unified system in today's world of multiple ways that you can sell your product and goods and services is very likely immeasurable.
Right. So I have a lot of questions around that, but I think that goes back to what we talked about before, is bringing your IT department to kind of answer some of those questions, like, when you say merge a system, like, what does that mean? So
yeah, and the obvious is it creates a single source of the truth, because you're putting all the data and making a confluence into one repository. But also at that point, you now have a single predictable or somewhat predictable maintenance cost across the system. If you have disparate systems and you don't merge them, you're going to have three separate different variable costs associated with system maintenances. And also you're at risk because perhaps those that are supplying those systems, i.e. a supply chain, they may change their product, they may change their focus, and that product which you're operating on one system becomes obsolete. And so really at that point you're in a quagmire and your back is against the wall. You're going to have to invest a lot of money in changing the systems anyhow. So let's get to one, and if that event occurs with a supplier changing what they're offering, you at least can move the entire database to a single source moving forward.
Oh, well, that sounds like a really big deal. The fact that your supplier really has control over your business at that point in time. So why not merge your systems and take that control back so that you own your business?
Yeah, and so once you've done that, what you've essentially created, and it is a very, very salient point around sales and use, you've created this closed-end ecosystem for the data. And closed-end ecosystem, at least to me, is that you're taking all the data from the transaction point, putting it into the warehouse. You're then obviously going to generate the returns and remit the returns, but you're also able to pull in your cert management, if it exists, but those certificates go into it. So there's a very large topic that's been going on for the better part of a decade in legal circles about evidence in court cases called electronic discovery, and the big thing is about spoliation of the data. Here, you're avoiding that. The data is all going in one point, it's all housed in one point. It would be very difficult to have a corruption of the data if you've created that closed-end ecosystem by consolidating your disparate systems.
Absolutely. So there's lots of different businesses that you could partner with to achieve this goal. You know, the one thing I urge companies is take the time to get to know who are all the vendors that can provide the solution that you're looking for, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to find somebody that can partner with your objectives and your plans for your company, right? Do they have the ability to be agile with everything you want to do? Because everything's not a good fit for every company, right?
Yeah, and I think to your point, something for another discussion is selecting a vendor for today as well as selecting a vendor for the future.
Yes.
But once we have this data system that we're referring to, this ecosystem, a very strong benefit of this is how it works for external and internal purposes. Internal purposes, the internal audit. Obviously, you can look at the data, but for external purposes, the auditors can actually see the very ticks and ties that go through the exercise. They get comfortable with the system. They see it over and over, and they're probably not going to dig as deep into the hood as they otherwise would. They're going to understand your process. It's going to have that documentation and controls even if you're not public, you'll at least have the benefit of having documentation controls that are available for public companies, even though you're private, and that is invaluable.
Absolutely, that audit functionality for your team is really big.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about merging these systems, what we're looking at is the warehousing, the management of the data, and then finally the audit function, all being streamlined and smoothed out, and ultimately a reduction in cost and a reduction in risk.
Absolutely. So I agree with everything you said, John. I think that we did a very good job at, discussing this over the last couple of chapters here. So if you guys have any additional questions, we could have missed something that you guys want to know about. So please ask us below. We'll be glad to answer those.
By all means, give us a buzz or send us an email and we'll respond accordingly.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for joining. I'm Erica.
And I'm John.
And this is Tax Chats.